7 minutes after the hour of 5 as I take you, yours truly, Curtis Lee, on the drive home at 5. This was one of the Donald Trump theme songs during the campaign. And a lot of his supporters, after the open part of the testimony before the Senate Intelligence Committee was completed with James Comey earlier today, were taking that point of view, especially when it came to James Comey calling out the president as a liar.
And although the law required no reason at all to fire an FBI director, the administration then chose to defame me and, more importantly, the FBI by saying that the organization was in disarray, that it was poorly led, that the workforce had lost confidence in its leader. Those were lies, plain and simple. And I am so sorry that the FBI workforce had to hear them, and I'm so sorry that the American people were told them.
Called the president a liar, and then went further.
What was it about that meeting that led you to determine that you needed to start putting down a written record?
A combination of things. I think the circumstances, the subject matter, and the person I was interacting with. Circumstances first, I was alone with the President of the United States, or the President-elect, soon to be President. The subject matter, I was talking about matters that touch on the FBI's core responsibility and that relate to the President-elect personally. And then the nature of the person. I was honestly concerned that he might lie about the nature of our meeting, and so I thought it really important to document. That combination of things I'd never experienced before, but it led me to believe I got to write it down, and I got to write it down in a very detailed way.
Twice within 2 hours of open testimony on the Hill that Comey was talking about the president being a liar. On the line to discuss it, Scotty Nell Hughes, who is now the national spokeswoman for the Defending the President PAC. Thanks for joining us again here on the Drive Home at 5, Scotty.
Oh, thank you for having me. And can you not say bitter party of one listening to Comey today, who has absolutely played an excellent role of being the fired employee who had a national bully pulpit for him to go against his former boss. I am looking at headlines right now, Curtis, and I am literally, I can't believe what I'm reading. But when headlines say, Comey, Trump administration lied, defamed me, and FBI, I want to send him a note. Hey, by the way, that was used last week by Kathy Griffin, and how did that work out for her? This has been absolutely a very roller coaster of a day to watch, but for Democrats to think this was going to end anything else but a disaster for them, I'm shocked that they did not see this coming.
Now, in terms of his overall cross-examination and what he had to say publicly, because we've yet to see any leaks from his private testimony that continued on behind closed doors, overall, what did you take from it?
I took from it exactly what I knew was going to happen. He denied that there was ever any evidence of collusion between the Trump camp, or no, let me say this. He said, I cannot say it out in public, which basically means no, I want to allow this narrative to continue, whether it's true or false. It works to my advantage. He proved that he said 3 times that President Trump was not under an investigation. And third, it showed that Republicans, and I'm going to give us the well-deserved credit that the Republicans in the Senate deserve, that they proved in their questioning that Comey was bitter and that he was basing all of this speculation on the words hope when it came to the fact that he felt like President Trump had intimidated him and tried to influence whether or not an investigation into General Flynn was going to happen. The word was hope. It was never demanded. Democrats today watch their entire narrative implode. And this is why President Trump 2 days ago said he was not going to use executive privilege and keep Comey from testifying.
But Scotty Nell Hughes, didn't you find that when he used the term inappropriate, disturbing, and the awkwardness of having to sit with the president by his lonesome self, that would resonate with a lot of people who are looking in on this testimony, saying to themselves, yeah, the president may not have done anything criminally wrong, but he certainly didn't go about handling this the right way due to protocol?
First of all, there was no protocol. There was no by the books, but we're talking about opinions here. This is opinions. This is the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The last thing I want to hear him whining about is his opinion or his sense or his body language or what he feels like the president was trying to do from him. When my national security and the safety of my family is at stake, I want to hear facts. And what we saw today was a huge circus of opinion, emotion, and distraction from the real issues that Americans are dealing with today. That deals with the Affordable Care Act, that deals with national security and the terrorism that we're seeing abroad, and it deals with things like tax reform. Those are the issues, and I think the majority of Americans listening today watched, if they had the opportunity, because they weren't working, had the opportunity to watch the Comey hearings today and thought, man, these folks need to spend a day in the real world and find out what's really plaguing the majority of us, and this was not it.
Well, at a certain juncture in his testimony, James Comey said he felt that President Donald Trump was looking to get something in order so that he, James Comey, could stay on the job as being FBI director.
Well, and once again, felt. This is all about feelings. There was no hardcore evidence, but okay, so fine. He brought him in for dinner to feel him out, to see, okay, what are you going to do? Both sides of the aisle have called at different points for the lack of trust and the lack of confidence within Director Comey. All today, at the end of the day, justified was why President Trump let him go, and it had nothing to do with Russia, because guess what? There is no evidence of Russia, and I find it very funny today that even despite it being shown that it was unclassified memos, we have yet to see these memos when they were released. Maybe we need to wait for another Bernie Sanders supporter to leak them out, and maybe we'll see them just like we might see the 30,000 emails from Hillary Clinton, but I'm not holding my breath.
Well, in fact, that came up when James Comey himself was speaking about how it was that he leaked those memos through his friend, the professor from Columbia University.
The president tweeted on Friday, after I got fired, that I better hope there's not tapes. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there might be corroboration for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel. And so I asked a close friend of mine to do it.
And was that Mr. Wittes?
No.
Who was that?
A good friend of mine who's a professor at Columbia Law School.
Now, Scotty, I got to tell you that when the president did tweet that, it really took a lot of folks back to the point where they're saying, did the president just threaten the former FBI director about possibly having taped conversations? So what would be wrong with Comey using a friend to get out a memo that was not classified information so as to clarify that?
Well, we still have not seen that memo. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially when you're talking with an FBI director who's going out in public basing on opinions. Once again, we're talking about opinions. So why not sit there and play the same game that the opposition is playing with this administration when they get played back on them and they realize that we're calling their bluff, which is exactly what President Trump did? Comey had to start thinking twice, going, oh, my gosh, maybe, they might actually have this evidence, which I'm sure President Trump more than likely does not have. But more, we just want to say, you know what, before you go out there and defame me like we know you're doing, as a disgruntled employee would do, let me double check, let me make you think twice, because it has happened in history before where there have been tape recordings. And so you might want to make sure you're saying the truth out there in the public eye.
Now, I noticed today, Scotty, the president did not follow through on what he had promised. While watching the testimony, he would be tweeting responses. There was none of that. Instead, he had his private attorney go out and address the media afterwards. Can we assume that might be a new policy of his to restrain himself and not immediately get involved in a Twitter rampage?
Well, I don't know about that, but I think what it did do, President Trump knew that today's testimony was incriminating enough to the whole false narrative of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. And so he did not want to give, and we have found that some of our friends, some of our snowflakes in the mainstream media like to go after these little ants and make mountains out of molehills. And so he was not going to give them that news line today. He was going to force them, as they are having to do, to lead off their nightly news report tonight, talking about how just absolutely ludicrous Comey looked today on the stand, and how the biggest loser, the biggest sort of incriminating comment made today was actually against Loretta Lynch, when it talked about that the reason why he issued his statement about Hillary Clinton was that the urging and the conversation he had with former Attorney General Loretta Lynch. She's the one right now that is going, he was probably, could say, has had the worst day today thanks to the Comey testimony.
Well, I want to give you a shout out here, Scotty, as the brand new national spokesperson for the Defending the President PAC. If people are interested, how can they find out more information about the Defending the Presidential PAC?
Very simple. Just go to defendthepresident.com and you can look up all of our information. We've got petitions, we've got polls going on, but basically just pushing back on this anti-Trump narrative that continues, that has been continuing. But maybe today that's the lemonade. We might see a change of pace once we dismiss this whole cloud of Russia behind us. We can actually start working for the American people and getting information that actually we can use and utilize every day.
I have a feeling, Scotty Nell Hughes, that cloud is not going away anytime soon.